Okay. WrestleMania 30. My God, that set looked beautiful. That was probably my favorite WrestleMania set of all time. Very simple, but striking, with the 3 X's on there, and the video floor on the ramp, and all the lights and stuff. I mean, you know they must have broke the bank on that set, because it looked gorgeous. Big thumbs up on the aesthetics of the show. They started off with the tag team title match on the pre-show. Which, I'm sorry to say, I did not watch. I went to the store to get some dinner for the show, and I didn't get back in time. And it says a lot that I didn't even bother to go back and watch it afterward, because they gave me no reason to. You know, for all of WWE's talk about how 2014 is going to be the year of the tag team division, they shunted the tag title match to the damn pre-show. Why? So the middle-aged outlaws and Corporate Kane could get the spots on the main card? Come on. I heard it was good. Apparently, Cesaro turned face. Good. Should have happened on the main card, but whatever. So the pay-per-view officially starts with Hogan. You knew that was going to happen. Hashtag Superdome. Oh, man. You know, promo batches like that are why I'm glad Hogan's not in TNA anymore. So Austin and Rock come out, and there's a lot of mutual ass-kissing going on. You know, just as a welcome to WrestleMania deal. Because, well, they only had 7 matches on the card, and they had to fill that time with something. God knows it couldn't be the tag title match. Yeah, it wasn't really about anything, but it's Hogan, Austin, and Rock. Oh, okay, fine. That's a WrestleMania moment right there, even if it is really just there for fan service. So, anyway, I kind of expected Triple H and Bryan to be the opener, you know, just to start things off hot with a big match, and then to give the winner time to rest up before the main event. And this was really good. Arguably the match of the night. But honestly, I thought it would be just a little bit better. You know, Triple H and Bryan, you'd expect that to be a really epic match. And I'm not saying it wasn't, but I would rank this as really, really, really good, but just a tiny bit short of how great I thought it could have been, which is understandable because Bryan was pulling double duty. I actually thought it got a little slow with the story being Triple H just trying to beat Bryan down and Bryan trying to gut through everything they could throw at him. You know, the submissions went on for kind of a long time. I was hoping for something a little more fast-paced, but this did play into the main event really well. And credit to Triple H, too. I mean, even though the Breakfast Club might rule bitches, you know, he really put Bryan over here. Bryan was kicking out of pedigrees and stuff. You know, they put a lot of sympathy on Bryan with the post-match attack. You know, they really made it tough for Bryan and let him overcome the odds. And with him, that works in a way that it doesn't with Cena. Because Cena's been overcoming the odds for years now. Years. And you can only do that for so long and do it so many times before you're really not an underdog anymore. But with Bryan, it's a much more compelling story because with him, there's a real sense of struggle. Whereas with Cena, it seems pretty easy for him now. You know, a really damn good match. And goddamn, Daniel Bryan beat Triple H at WrestleMania 30. How freaking awesome is that? A 6-man tag with the middle-aged outlaws and Corporate Kane? Was that really the best thing you could come up with for the Shield? And come on, guys. And the Shield have been some of the MVPs of your roster for over a year now, and all they get is an under 3-minute squash just so the heels can get pay-per-view spots? It was like, yeah, we all know the Shield are winning here, but you know, Kane and Triple H's buddies needed to be on the show for some reason. It was nice to see the Shield go over so strongly. Also nice to see Roman Reigns get a little showcase there, and the 2-man triple powerbomb was cool. Otherwise, this kind of felt like filler. Amazing entrance for the Wyatt family. You know, the band wearing the masks and all the mood lighting and stuff. I had goosebumps. Really impressive entrance. I had some problems with the match, though. I will say that the psychology of the match itself was great. You know, with Bray playing all these mind games, and Cena actually sold that a lot more than you'd think he would. But the story in the build-up to the match really ended up hurting this, in my opinion, because it was just so haphazardly thrown together. I thought the build-up to this match was actually really bad. You know, it starts with Cena saying that, you know, he's the measuring stick, and if there's a new generation rising, and if they want to be the top stars in the industry, then the line starts behind me, you know. Enter Bray Wyatt. And it starts with Cena not taking Bray seriously at all, making light of him, making stupid jokes. And then a week later, Cena is suddenly afraid of Bray Wyatt, afraid that people are listening to him, letting Bray get under his skin. What? When did that happen? And then Cena is getting all paranoid and jumpy and stuff, and it's like, well, how did we get here? Why is he acting like this? It's like the most important parts of this storyline happened off camera. And then suddenly it's about Bray trying to destroy Cena's legacy or something like that, because somehow if Cena loses this match, or if he embraces his dark side and hits Bray with a chair one time, then that will somehow destroy Cena's legacy? How? Why? Like Cena's never hit somebody with a chair before? This storyline was all over the place. I think they were able to salvage a lot of it because, like I said, the work during the match was so damn good. But the writing did them no favors. And of course, Cena wins, even though 99% of the audience was behind Bray Wyatt. And Cole is like, oh, Cena stayed true to himself. He stayed true to the C Nation. Yeah. And that's why they boo him. Look, the reason this happens, the reason Cena gets booed, and it goes beyond him winning all the time, the reason he gets booed is because Cena doesn't act like a human being. He acts like nothing ever phases him. And even when something does get to him, it doesn't last, which makes him impossible to relate to. You know, even here, when the Wyatts were getting under his skin, he still beat them, and the next night on Raw, he was perfectly fine. So, fuck all that build-up. If Cena was a little less than perfect, he would feel more real. He doesn't feel like a person anymore. He's a cardboard cutout white knight hero, and it's boring. This is why fans are gravitating toward characters like Daniel Bryan. It's why they're cheering for the Wyatts over Cena. It's because these characters are more interesting because they feel more real and authentic. I can't believe that they wouldn't put Bray Wyatt over here. Well, no, I can believe it because it's John Cena. But my God, Bray Wyatt stood to gain so much from winning this match. I mean, they could have created a superstar with Bray Wyatt here, with a signature victory over John Cena at WrestleMania. And Bray was in no way buried here. But at the end of the day, the story was that he just couldn't get the job done. What the hell are you waiting for? Bray Wyatt is money. Cena did not need this victory. I mean, the loss wouldn't have hurt him at all. Quite the opposite, actually. Because Cena is at a point now where he's gone over so many times and done the Super Cena stuff for so long that he's actually much more interesting when he loses. Because on those rare occasions, he seems just a little less than perfect. And they had a chance here to do so many really interesting things with his character. Imagine, just imagine, if Bray Wyatt had won that match. Or not even that, if he had gotten Cena to surrender to the dark side of the Force or whatever the hell it was. And for a second, just for a second, Cena lost his composure, lost his cool, and really hit Bray with that chair. And Bray Wyatt won because just for one moment, he got Cena to compromise himself. And with any other character, you could just brush that off. But because it's John Cena, you could use that to take his character on an actual journey, to do some really interesting character development with him. I mean, my God, the stuff you could have done with this. Just unbelievable. Huge wasted opportunity there. Good match, great psychology, great storytelling during the match, poor build-up, and absolutely the wrong finish. Terrible decision. I'm sorry, but I really did not care about the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. And you can call this whatever you want, but it was so transparently just a way to round up a whole bunch of mid-carders who mean nothing and had nothing going on creatively Just lump them all together and get them pay-per-view spots. That's all this was. You knew how meaningless this was when Big Show was the only one who got an entrance, and they didn't even bother to announce the eliminations as they happened. And for the most part, it was messy and not very interesting. They had Fandango dancing on the apron instead of getting back in the ring, acting like the biggest dumbass on earth, and then the Kofi thing happened. Okay, look, I have a bone to pick with this. Was the Kofi spot amazing? Yeah, it was. But I hated it. It was stupid. You know, they do this stuff at the Royal Rumble every year. You know, there's always one or two spots where someone almost gets eliminated, but then they jump over to the ring barrier, and then they jump back to the ring, and their feet never touch the ground, so they're not eliminated yet. And you know what? It's always an impressive spot that's fun to watch when it happens, but I hate it. Because the whole thing is predicated on this bullshit technicality that your feet have to touch the ground. Both feet have to touch the ground to take you out of the match. You know what? If you get thrown over the top rope, if your feet leave the mat, you're in the air, heading for the ground, you know what? You're fucking eliminated. But no, you can get back in just by walking on your hands, or you can be lying on the ground. Your back, head, arms are all touching the floor, but your feet are resting on the bottom ring step. They didn't touch the ground, so technically you're not eliminated? Technically you're still in the match? Fuck you. This is stupid. They take this technicality so literally that it actually becomes comical. You know, if you think about it, you could jump over the top rope, touch the floor, hop on one foot up the ramp to the backstage area, go to the bathroom, take a dump, go visit catering, grab a snack, take some pictures with some Make-A-Wish kids, hop on one foot back to the ring, jump back in the ring, and then you're still in the match because both feet never touch the ground? Bullshit. You're throwing logic out the window just for the sake of a cool spot. And it might be fun to watch, but that doesn't mean it's not stupid. This match was stupid. The finish was cool, though. You know, Cesaro body slamming the Big Show, doing a callback to Hogan and Andre, that was a great touch. Great WrestleMania moment for Cesaro right there. You know, it would have been more impressive if we hadn't seen Cena doing stuff like that with Big Show for years. But that doesn't take anything away from this. It doesn't mean Cesaro's not a freak in nature. Holy shit. You know, the right guy definitely won the match. And he got put over in a big way, and that's great for Cesaro. You know, that part was great. I didn't care about the match, but something good did come out of it. Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker. Not a good match. Not a good matchup. From the get-go, I thought this was a bad idea. Brock is way too stiff, Taker's way too old, and he was probably going to get hurt. And he did. And I can't believe that's how they did it. I'm flabbergasted. Even as I'm recording this on Tuesday, I still can't believe it. I mean, that's how you do it? Really? Of all the ways the streak could have ended, that's how you thought you should do it? Wow. Here's the thing. Okay? I don't like the streak. At all. There was a time, yes, when it had a purpose and a really good one. But they're way past that now. You could definitely tell in recent times, the last 2 years specifically, that they really didn't have any compelling reasons to keep it going, and it was turning into not much more than an annual WrestleMania marketing gimmick and a way to push DVD sales and a way to refuse to let go of the past, basically. You know, if Taker really cared about his legacy and going out in the right way to preserve his legacy, then the end of an era match was really the time to do it. He was never going to get a better send-off than that. And he didn't. I mean, that match had 4 years of build-up behind it. You know, the two Manias with Shawn Michaels, the two Manias with Triple H. So many different elements that went into that. And the match told a magnificent story. And when it was over, regardless of if Taker had won or if Triple H had ended the streak, if that had been Taker's last match, his last WrestleMania match, it would have felt appropriate because there was a big sense of finality and closure to the whole thing. And he would have gone out in a blaze of glory. These were all things that the match with Brock Lesnar did not have. The whole thing was just about Brock wanting to end the streak, and that's it. But we're so far removed from the time when someone just wanting to end the streak makes for a compelling story. To really make these Taker matches interesting, the story needed to be about something more than that, which is why the end of an era stuff was so damn good. The build-up sucked. It should have been about Taker getting older and falling victim to the ravages of time or whatever, like it said in that video package, and being faced with an opponent now that he thought he might not be able to overcome. There's some drama you could glean from a story like that. But instead, they had Lesnar acting scared, getting pwned by Taker multiple times. I mean, he didn't even get any heat at all, really, until the go-home show. I mean, sure, nobody thought Taker was going to lose anyway, but they didn't even try to convince people otherwise. The result being that nobody really gave a shit about the match. And it wasn't even a good match either. I was kind of half paying attention to the whole thing. There was no drama, no reason to care. It was slow, plodding, boring. Everyone knew Brock had no chance. Everyone knew the streak wasn't in danger. Everyone knew that Taker wasn't going to lose. And then he lost. Shocking? Hell yeah. Nobody saw this coming. But don't hang your hat on that and act like this was the right way to go. The reason it was so shocking is because not only did people not think it could happen, they didn't think it should happen. Instead of the streak ending in an epic, climactic blaze of glory and that gave people closure on the whole thing, this went over like a fart in a hurricane. When the ref's hand came down for the 3, I honestly thought it was a botched call. I kept waiting for Vince or someone to call an audible and just restart the match, because no way would they let the streak end like that. But they did. And apparently that was the plan the whole time. What the fuck? Yes, I wanted the streak to end. But not like this. Not like this. This was awful. You have a streak that has been built up for over 20 years. Over 20 years! And that's how it ends. With a whimper. Are you kidding me? Even if that was Taker's decision, and I'm guessing it probably was, that doesn't mean it was the right way to go. I mean, the end of the streak deserved a grand, epic, momentous send-off, and that wasn't even close to what we got. Good God, what a disaster. And think for a minute about what was lost here. A rub, 22 years in the making. A moment in time that comes around not once in a lifetime, not once in a generation, once. Just once. A moment that can never be recreated. A rub that, if given to the right person, could have created an instant superstar for life. One win that, with the right story behind it, would have created the next face of the company. The guy to build everything around. The guy with unbreakable credibility, who is your next big main event player for years to come. The guy with newly minted legend status, because that's the guy that beat the fucking Undertaker at WrestleMania and ended the goddamn streak. And instead, after a few weeks of underwhelming build-up, a boring match, and a hugely anticlimactic finish with a terrible post-match reaction, it's Brock Lesnar who does it. Brock Lesnar, a part-timer who wrestles maybe 3 or 4 matches a year, who there's no guarantee will stick around long-term, who already walked out of the company once before, who will probably disappear again after the Fallout show on Raw. I mean, we might not see him again until SummerSlam. That's the guy you give the streak to? That's the guy? Brock was already a made star. He'd already risen to the pinnacle. Brock did not need this. This didn't give him anything he didn't already have. And then I hear the argument like, oh, but anyone who beats Brock is now an instant star because they beat the guy who beat the streak. Bullshit. Anyone who beat Brock Lesnar was already a bigger star automatically because they beat Brock fucking Lesnar. Yeah, the former NCAA champion, the former youngest WWE champion, the former UFC heavyweight champion. But all that wasn't enough? He needed to break the streak too to be able to make other people into stars? No. No. I'm a huge Brock Lesnar fan, but he didn't need this. He never needed this. The honor of breaking the streak was wasted on him when it could have instantly made the career of somebody else. I mean, just imagine if the guy to break the streak had been someone like Bray Wyatt or Roman Reigns. Instantly, just like that guy would become the biggest damn star in the company. Or if you didn't think either guy was the right one to do it, fine. Fine, you got a deep roster. Pick someone else. Right guy, right time, whatever. But to have Brock Lesnar do it in such a horribly underwhelming, creatively half-assed way, when he was the last guy in the company who needed this, that's insane to me. I'm really tempted to say that the streak never being broken and Taker retiring undefeated might have been better than this. At least then, the WWE wouldn't have had this monster that they'd created over 2+ decades get put down and send a legend in the business off into the sunset in such a way that would help no one, satisfy no one, and do very little, if anything, to help the company's future. Really, I don't think I'll ever understand how or why Vince or the WWE or The Undertaker thought that this was the right way to go. How The Undertaker should have gone out versus how he did. Everything WWE could have done with the end of the streak to pay dividends in the future versus what they did. Tragic. Oh man, those poor divas. You knew they were going to get the death slot. They always do. But here, they're finally getting an honest-to-God Divas Championship match at a WrestleMania, and it doesn't have any stupid crap in it like Snooki or Maria Menounos or anything like that. And even though it's just all of them crammed into one big schmaz in a pretty short match, it's the first ever actual Divas Championship match at a WrestleMania, and it must have meant a lot to them. I felt terrible for those women, because having to follow the streak ending like that, no matter what they did, no matter how much effort they put in, that crowd wasn't going to give a shit. And yeah, it was really just a big clusterfuck, but there actually were 1 or 2 cool spots here. And that's more than what they usually get. And you had the Tower of Doom, and the Bellas doing stereo suicide dives. I mean, when was the last time you saw a diva do that? But really, I mean, it was going to take a miracle to bring the crowd back to life at that point. Now, thankfully, that miracle's name was Daniel Bryan. AJ retains, and I really didn't care. AJ's title reign has been so boring. They've done nothing with it since the Caitlyn feud. Nothing. I was kind of rooting for Summer Rae to win the title, if for no other reason than to see Natty completely flip the fuck out about it on the reality show. But no, AJ retains, which means that months and months and months of her having half-assed rivalries with the Total Divas cast went absolutely nowhere. But, there is a silver lining. And this is mainly why I waited until Tuesday to record this. Because when AJ won the match and retained the title, I knew that Paige had to show up on Raw. Paige had to debut the next night on Raw and win the title from AJ. That's exactly what happened, and it was awesome. And I've got no illusions about this. You know, I know Paige's title reign is probably going to turn out like most Diva title reigns do, which is ultimately fizzling out and going nowhere. But that's a ways off still. And this made for a really exciting moment on Raw. I kind of wish that had been the WrestleMania Divas match, actually, because that whole thing just felt like a setup for the title change on Raw. But, hell, at least happening on Raw meant it would get a reaction from the crowd. Great for Paige, not so great for the other divas. In Daniel Bryan's introductory interview before Season 1 of NXT, he said that his goal was to main event WrestleMania. I was pretty skeptical. I think most people were. And up until the moment the bell rang, I was kind of half expecting WWE to take this back somehow. It seemed like they were really putting him in there reluctantly, but due to a really unique set of circumstances, Punk leaving when he did, the streak ending when it did, the way it did, they were in a position where they really had no choice. After Lesnar Taker, they had to put Bryan in there. They had to let him win the title, or they would have had a revolt on their hands. I think we all knew that this wasn't going to be a straight-up match. The storyline really wouldn't allow for that. Inevitably, the Authority had to come down there and start throwing the kitchen sink at Bryan. Sledgehammers, crooked ref, powerbomb RKO through the announce table, a stretcher job. I think they very, very narrowly avoided going too far with all this by having Bryan get off the stretcher when he did. I mean, I was really worried that they were going to do that stupid-ass gimmick where the guy gets taken away in an ambulance, and then a few minutes later, he drives the ambulance back to the arena and re-enters the match. So glad they didn't go there. This would have turned cartoonish at that point. But it didn't. And somehow, some way, it all worked. Just as a triple threat match, I thought this was excellent. The final minutes were packed with drama. The finish was very, very satisfying. And, my God, what a roller coaster this was. The crowd dying with Lesnar Taker, Bryan bringing the crowd back to life, and then finally getting that cathartic moment of triumph after 8 months of fighting the Authority and the fans suffering right along with him. This was outstanding. The match was great. The story was great. On a night when the Undertaker's streak ended in a way that almost felt like 22 years had gone to waste, the show still ended on a glorious high because Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson, think about that for a minute, Bryan fucking Danielson defeated Triple H, Randy Orton, made Batista tap out, beating the Authority, finally winning the big one, and became the WWE World Champion at WrestleMania 30. I can't even believe I just said that. This made me so happy as a fan. So happy for Daniel Bryan. I got to meet him in person at an indie show once, and he was really cool to me. Just a great guy. No one deserves this more than he does. And it's a real shame that this had to happen in the shadow of the streak ending in such a terribly anticlimactic way. And I'm afraid that years from now, that's what WrestleMania 30 is going to be remembered for more than anything. But while, in my opinion, WWE got one thing horribly, horribly wrong, they got that final moment with Bryan incredibly right. And for me, that made this the biggest mark-out pay-per-view that I've seen in a very, very, very long time. Thank you, WWE, for giving me this moment. You fumbled the ball pretty damn hard with The Undertaker, but that was one hell of a recovery. Peace out.